Heads up, because you're in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit, KJ Green, welcoming you to another edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. Coming up in this edition, is there an SEC bias in the college football playoff? We'll examine the teams that could potentially be in, out, and the politics behind it. Is there a finals preview on the horizon with the finals of the NBA Cup? Take a look at why I think Oklahoma City versus New York could be a reality not only this month, possibly in June. Lane Kiffin finally makes the move to LSU. Big surprise. Who's to blame for this? And is Kiffin being greedy or opportunistic? Is an MLB lockout inevitable? Look at the things that factor into a possible 2027 work stoppage. We'll have NFL Week 14 on tap. I've got to get better. Not a losing week, but I'll make sure I get better. Hoodwood Hot 5 has a big shakeup. Fat Dab Head Slap. And a final word from the Wood on the greediness of college athletics. All coming straight at you. Put your crash helmets on. Buckle your seatbelts. Sports from the Hoodwood's coming at you. Let's go.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where the snow fell and chaos ensued. And I'm just here inside watching it fall. I'm your man, KJ Green, welcoming you back to another edition of the Hoodwood, and let's get right in off the top and talk about the college football playoff, or the SEC championship, as some people think. A lot of people think, with the way the rankings have went, that the CFP has an unnecessary tilt toward the Southeastern Conference. Given the rankings of the CFP, of course, you have your usual suspects. The defending champ is Ohio State from Big Ten. Them and Indiana set to square off Saturday in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship, and that's basically for a coin. Both of these teams are getting in. Georgia, of course, 11-1, is third in the college football rankings, the CFP rankings. They basically, I think, are pretty much a lock to get in as well, win or lose against Alabama. Texas Tech playing BYU, I think that both get in. If BYU wins, I think that gets both them and Texas Tech in. Oregon, of course, from the Big Ten. Now, there's your top 5 teams, only one SEC team in there. Fine. I mean, people say, well, there's a Big Ten bias. No, Ohio State and Indiana are undefeated. They're the only 2 undefeated teams in the country. They're not going to go anywhere. They're going. Oregon's only loss was to Indiana. You're going to leave them out? No. Once you get below 5, that's where the murkiness starts. You have 4 straight SEC teams at Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Alabama. Now, only Alabama has a real shot of getting in with a SEC title win. But then that makes 2 teams. So then you have 3 other teams that are kind of jockeying about. Ole Miss, in the midst of the Lane Kiffin drama, Texas A&M, who took their first loss to in-state rival Texas, Oklahoma, who is 10-2, but they have a bunch of quality wins on their resume. We're not going to get into Texas. Texas has been carping long and hard that they should be in, but they have 3 losses. And that in itself just rubs me the wrong way. I don't think a team with 3 losses should jump over any team with 1 or 2 losses. And then you have the group of 5. Tulane, North Texas, James Madison, all with worthy resumes. North Texas and James Madison both being 11-1, Tulane being 10-2. Tulane and North Texas facing off Friday night for the American Championship. James Madison really shouldn't have any problem Friday itself with Troy winning the Sun Belt. But you look at these teams and you're saying, okay, you want to put the best 12 teams in the college football playoff. Yes, the SEC does have a strong litany of participants, but you're not trying to overload the college football playoff with all these teams from one conference. What's the point? Play an 8-team SEC tournament and just say, okay, there's your national champion. Because that's what it's looking like. That's what it's pressing to. And the SEC and Big Ten are putting pressure on the powers that be to create a 16-team college football playoff with 4 guaranteed spots for both the Big Ten and the SEC. I don't like the theory of guaranteed spots other than for the conference champion. Once you start getting into these guaranteed spots, that's when you're starting to get into bias. That's when you're starting to get into favoritism. Whose pockets are being padded for this? Soon you're going to have the SEC and the Big Ten trying to break away from the NCAA and saying, okay, this is going to be our tournament. And is that good for college football? This is a mess that needs to be cleaned up, and soon, because as a patron of college football, someone who loves watching the game, this is not fair. And people say, well, smaller schools, they take their chances when they play. And I was discussing it with one of my homies the other night about if you put a James Madison on the field against a Georgia, what would happen? More often than not, Georgia would curb stomp. But the thing I keep saying left and right is that you put these teams in, they have a shot, not a realistic shot, but a shot nonetheless. That's what I want college football to be. Teams getting at least a legitimate, fair shot. And you never know. They might catch lightning in a bottle, knock off a team or two, and get into the semis. And then you talk about teams like Notre Dame, who just feel like that they have this inherent right to be in the postseason. Notre Dame's 10-2. They've won 10 straight, but they've loaded up on ho-hos and cream puffs in the back half of their schedule. Yeah, I know. They beat USC. USC is in the middle of the Big Ten. They beat Pitt, a disinterested Pitt who was more concerned about trying to get the ACC final, which they did not do. But then they've won 10 straight, but they've beaten a lot of weak teams. And that in itself is just not right. The ACC is just a much of a muddled situation in its own right. Virginia and Duke playing in the ACC final. If Duke beats Virginia, you might not have an ACC representative in the CFP. And that may be just as well, because the ACC is weak, besides Virginia winning with a 7-1 league mark. But you have a 5-team morass of teams behind them. Duke managed to pull its lucky number out of the hat and now, I had planned to do a piece on the NBA Cup and are we seeing a possible NBA Finals preview in OKC versus New York. I was going to preview the semifinals and finals. But this information came across just the other day, actually yesterday, and on Wednesday, about Chris Paul being unceremoniously dumped by the Los Angeles Clippers. And it was one of those, it wasn't the coach calling up CP3 and saying, we need to talk, he was basically told to go home in the middle of the night. Who does that, Clippers? And it was such a shocking development. It was a 3-hour conversation between Clippers president of basketball operations, Lawrence Frank, and Chris Paul at the team hotel in Atlanta. Lawrence Frank basically telling Chris Paul, go home. We don't want you no more. They didn't cut him. They can't cut him at least until December 15th, as per the collective bargaining agreement, the way the language of the contract is. Paul signed a 1-year, $3.6 million contract just this past July, so he's not eligible to be traded until December 15th. And if they waive him, they can't sign a replacement. And it can't fall below a certain number of players on the team. So basically, Chris Paul has to stay with the Clippers, but he's not with the Clippers, if that makes any sense. And it's a sad situation because the Clippers have long labored in the shadow of the Lakers. They've long been the second team in LA. I mean, they shared space with the Lakers for a long time in crypto.com arena. It used to be called Staples Center, but it's, they had that downtown arena that they end up having a lot of the weaker nights and weaker times where they would play at 12:30 on Saturdays and the Lakers would play at 7:00. So they were always second citizens in their own, in what was supposed to be their building. They was renting it from the Lakers. They moved to a new arena last year, the Intuit Dome. Steve Ballmer, after he took over from the deposed Donald Sterling, tried to make the Clippers a legitimate franchise, a team that was respected, was not afraid to spend money, and had as many glamour players, if not more, than their crosstown rivals in the LA Lakers. This kind of behavior, this kind of action shows that the Clippers are still a second-class team. They are a low-rent team because doing that to CP3, a future Hall of Famer, there's no doubt Chris Paul will be in the Hall of Fame. I saw Chris Paul play in college at Wake Forest, and he was dominant then. He's not so much dominant now because, like I said, Father Time is undefeated. But the Clippers are 5-16. The Clippers are a joke again. They're not a respectable team. Yeah, they have Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, they have James Harden. But these players are basically going through the motions. Kawhi Leonard's not talking to anybody. Kawhi Leonard's just straight face. Doesn't say anything to anybody. Chris Paul and Coach Tyronn Lue hadn't spoke in days. How was one player and a coach not even communicating, especially a player like Chris Paul? It's a sad way to go out like this. And I hope that when Chris Paul is able to be acquired by another team, that he can be acquired by another team and that he can help them, if not so much mentoring young guards, but being somebody who can come off the bench and give the team a spark, a contending team. Chris Paul's never been to the NBA Finals. He's gotten to the Western Conference Finals a couple times, but has never gotten on that big stage. And at 40, he's already announced that he's going to be retiring after this season, hanging it up after 20 seasons. But the way he was unceremoniously shoved out the door is sad and emblematic of the Clippers. It's the way they are. It's the way they do things. And they're going to continue to suffer, even without Chris Paul. And they deserve it. Let's take time out, come back, and look at this sad saga of Lane Kiffin to LSU. Could it have gotten any messier? And is an MLB lockout inevitable? Sports from Hoodwood comes back at you after this.
Is today your last day on Earth because you are being deployed to space tomorrow? Have you just turned 18 and you're ready to get out of your parents' house? Has your granddaughter gotten her boyfriend pregnant? Whatever your reason, you need us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com. We specialize in last-minute weddings. Active duty, military veterans and retired discounts are available. Visit us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's premier destination for no-nonsense commentary, thorough analysis, and logical insight on the world of sports. Now here's the man that Wikipedia and Google call for sports fact checks, your host, KJ Green.
You're back in the Hoodwood. My name is KJ Green. Snuffy says it best. LSU is paying over $100 million for 3 coaches. 2 of them are no longer with the program, Ed Orgeron and Brian Kelly. And they just signed Lane Kiffin to a multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract to woo him away from Ole Miss. Thus ends the weird, wild saga and courtship of the 50-year-old Lane Kiffin, who went 55-19 at Ole Miss, third best record in the SEC behind Georgia and Alabama in his time there in his 6 years. But now there is even more of a strange saga that's going on at LSU. How was he courted? How was he wooed to the bio? How was the whole thing transpired? And that Lane Kiffin saying that he wanted to stay at Ole Miss and at least coach his team through the playoffs. But Ole Miss wasn't having it. They said, you want to go, get your stuff and get. And LSU, who is sitting at home twiddling his thumbs waiting for maybe a bowl game, poached many of Kiffin's coaches and players, wooing them west. A lot of players from Ole Miss are looking to the west to follow their coach to Baton Rouge. And I have never understood the obsession over Lane Kiffin. I mean, yes, he did coach very well at Ole Miss, but his saga going from boy wonder coach in the pros at Oakland, run out unceremoniously after a row with Mercurial legendary owner Al Davis, basically run out of the East Bay, landing on his feet at Tennessee, but only there a year. You say Lane Kiffin in Knoxville, they'll spit on the ground anytime his name is mentioned. That's going to be a really interesting game if Tennessee and LSU ever play in Knoxville. Very interesting. But then after a year in Knoxville, he ran to USC, coached there for 3 years, then unceremoniously fired on the tarmac after an embarrassing loss to Arizona State where they gave up 62 points. He landed on his feet in Alabama, but of course, him and Nick Saban butted heads quite frequently. After he was hired at Florida Atlantic, he wanted to stay on and finish the job with Alabama, but Saban fired him because he thought he was a little too distracted with his upcoming gig at Florida Atlantic. He stayed at Florida Atlantic 2 years before jumping to Ole Miss. Now, I'm not saying that Kiffin isn't a good X's and O's coach. By and large, he has won immense praise for his offensive schematics. But it's the drama that follows Lane Kiffin around. It just seems that he can't help himself but have this diva coach attitude. And it wears thin real fast. I'm surprised he stayed as long at Ole Miss as he did. But what does he have to show for it? National titles? No. Conference titles? No. Bowl wins? A couple. But it's not like LSU is hiring Nick Saban. It's not like LSU is hiring Ryan Day. It's not like they're hiring some big name coach who has brought with him a resume of national championships. All I'm seeing is a lot of talk and a lot of where you going to be next year mentality. LSU is a high pressure situation. No person in the state of Louisiana gets paid more than the college football coach. And the governor of Louisiana leaned hard on Kelly, and the former athletic director who hired Kelly ran them out and more or less was like, I'm heading the search for our new coach. There wasn't a search for a new coach. Everybody knew who they were after. It was Lane Kiffin or bust. And people wonder who gets the blame for this whole situation. Lane Kiffin jumping from Ole Miss to LSU. He made the decision, and the players are left in the lurch. Another messy situation that needed rectification sooner rather than later. And many people saying, well, you can't dictate somewhere someone takes a job at. True. But there are moral obligations, principles, the way things are done right. And a lot of coaches have done this. Jump before the bowl season starts and then spend the time recruiting other players to make a move. And in the days of NIL, it just comes off as a really bad look. It's almost crazy to think MLB in what we think is very high popularity could be very well headed toward disaster. Let me explain. In a little less than a year, December 1st, 11:59, the Major League Baseball collective bargaining agreement that it has with the Players Association expires. Now, the owners basically want this to expire so they can renegotiate and put in new set of labor agreement standards with the players. Now, for the last 30 years, MLB has had unprecedented peace. There has not been a work stoppage in Major League Baseball since 1995. I was all of 22 years old when the Major League Baseball finally rectified a 232-day strike, bolstered by a ruling by future Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. But it seems that the owners are spoiling for a fight. They want a salary cap. MLBPA wants nothing to do with it. They're cool with a salary floor, a minimum amount that teams have to spend, but they are dead set against the salary cap. And therein lies one of the biggest fights or the biggest bones of a contention. Now, the owners locked the players out in 2021 before the start of this latest labor agreement, but they were able to rectify their situations and come to some sort of agreement mere days before there was to be any set loss of games. They pushed spring training back a little bit, convoluted the schedule a little bit, juggled it around, and was able to play the 2021 season without incident. But now you're looking at a larger, more protracted fight between the owners, led by Commissioner Rob Manfred, and the Players Association, which is led by Tony Clark. I grew up in the days where Marvin Miller and a myriad of commissioners battled head to head about basic labor agreements and rights that the owners didn't think would stand up. And they wanted to restrict free agency. They wanted to restrict player movement. They did all sorts of things. And the owners colluded against the players in the late 80s, which turned out to be disastrous for the owners because they had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. And a lot of players were able to become free agents just like that. So the owners are kind of wary of doing anything wrong by the union because they know the union is strong and that they have won many protracted labor battles. But that generation of players that were involved in those labor stoppages in the 90s are long since gone from the game. Heck, a lot of them are managers that are gone from the game as well. But MLB is looking at a protracted labor stoppage, and a work stoppage at this juncture in the sporting venue could be disastrous. MLB has a hold on the sporting imagination of the American public, but it doesn't have the baseball is life mentality that the NFL has. It doesn't have the game obsession that the NBA has. Now, both of them have had work stoppages and lockouts and labor issues over the past 10, 15 years and have suffered greatly because of it. MLB, if it goes through another labor stoppage, is in danger of falling into becoming a niche sport, a sport where guys like me in their 50s still watch, but does not appeal to the younger generation. And a work stoppage would hurt their credibility, both the owners and the players. And the sporting public, most of the time I see is millionaires fighting with billionaires. That's not the kind of mentality that they want. They want the product to be on the field. And a work stoppage would be disastrous for the game and Major League Baseball itself. Let's take a time out, come back with week 14 of the NFL picks. I just barely got above water, kept another winning week, though the lock of the upset did both come down right. We'll take a look at those 14 games for week 14. Sports from the Hoodwood rolls on after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for opinion, analysis, and insight on the world of sports. Here now is the man banned from sports trivia contests in 38 states and 4 Canadian provinces, and not to mention Guam. Your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. My name is KJ Green. Let's get into the Week 14 NFL picks. Now, I got to be honest with you. Thanksgiving weekend turned out to be, well, good food, good company, just being, having a decent week. But the picks, oh boy, they were starting to tilt toward the just disaster. I mean, what was the old 70s tune by Molly Hatchet, Flirting with Disaster? Because I sure was. All 3 Thanksgiving picks went the other way. The Packers-Lions game, it's one of those you kind of figure that the Packers are going to upend on the Lions, and Lions play uneven on Thanksgiving. For some reason, the Pokes just decided, we're going to play really, really good on Thanksgiving. I didn't figure it. But the Bengals beating the Titans, nobody saw that one. It's like one of those, I'm looking at going, this is going to hurt. This is really going to hurt. And then the Friday game with the Bears upending the Eagles, I started out 0-4. And I'm thinking, oh boy, here's the first losing week. I'm going to get it. But Sunday picks came through in fairly fine fashion. And 3 on the Sunday picks was a blocked Marcus Mariota pass on the Sunday night game from losing that one, though. Patriots coming through in fine fashion on Monday night, slamming the Giants. And I ended up getting a winning week, 9-7. I'm not complaining because the way that week started out, it could have been really, really bad. But with an endeavor to improve on my situation and my lot, I bring to you the Week 14 NFL picks. The odds provided by ESPN Bet for entertainment comparison purposes only. Bet the Lions and lose. That's on you. I don't pay bookies, and I'm too broke to pay anything else. Let's get into the picks. All times are Eastern Standard. You might want to check with the folks at 506sports.com for a fine coverage map of the games that are in your area. Do check your local listings. This is a Fox doubleheader weekend. The Bears-Packers game at 4:25 is going to about 90% of the country in the late window. So do take note of that. Start up with the Thursday game. The games of Thursday, December 4th, the 6-5-1 Cowboys taking on the 7-5 Lions at Ford Field in Detroit. 8:15 kickoff on Amazon Prime. The Lions are 3-point favorites. Last week, Cowboys defeated the Chiefs 31-28, while the Lions lost to the Packers 31-24. Both these teams basically having the same week because both of them played on Thursday, so they have the same amount of rest and preparation going into a very big game in the Motor City. Both these teams sitting kind of on the fringe of the playoff picture. I don't believe in the Pokes. I'll be just blunt. I mean, even though they have been playing well as of late, I'm waiting for Dak Prescott to remember he's Dak Prescott and throw a bushel of interceptions. The Lions keep playing uneven, where you think that they're going to start putting it together, and then they have one of these games where they fall asleep at the switch. The Thanksgiving Day game, Turkey against the Packers being a prime example. I do think the Lions will bounce back to get a key win. It'll be a tight game, but I think the Lions will pull it out. The pick here is Detroit. Let's turn to the Sunday games of Sunday, December 7th. Again, all times are Eastern Standard. First game on the docket, we have the 5-7 Dolphins taking on the 3-9 Jets at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. The Dolphins are 2.5-point favorites. Last week, the Dolphins defeated the Saints 21-17, while the Jets defeated the Falcons 27-24. Both of these teams coming off wins in their previous outings against NFC South opponents. Dolphins having a harder time with the Saints than they expected, while the Jets they fought hard against the Falcons and pulling out a late win. The Jets are the Jets. They're not a consistent team. They have quarterback problems, and any kind of semblance of a defense that they face, a real defense, they have problems with. The Dolphins, I really don't trust them, but I think that they should be able to handle this game on the road fairly easily. The pick here is Miami. Next on the docket, we have the 6-6 Steelers taking on the 6-6 Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. The Ravens are 6-point favorites. Last week, the Steelers lost to the Bills 26-7, while the Ravens lost to the Bengals 32-14. Both of these teams coming off of unexpected home losses. Both teams went into Week 13 matchups with the Bills and Bengals respectively, thinking they were going to roll their visiting opponents, but instead got rolled by often embarrassing situations. The Steelers offense went from bad to worse and got booed off Acrisure Stadium Field, while the Ravens turned over the ball 5 times to the Bengals and watched helplessly as the Bengals cashed every one of those turnovers into points in a surprising Thanksgiving defeat. Which team will bounce back in what is a battle for control of the NFC North? Don't let the records fool you. The winner of this team goes in the first place to AFC North. I think that the Ravens will be able to bounce back. The Steelers' offense is on life support, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the answer. Mike Tomlin his seat is getting hotter and hotter by the week, and it's not going to cool off anytime soon. Pick here is Baltimore. Next on the docket, we have the 3-9 Commanders taking on the 4-8 Vikings at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Vikings are 2.5-point favorites. Last week, the Commanders lost to the Broncos 27-26 in overtime, while the Vikings lost to the Seahawks 26-0. The Commanders lost a heartbreaking game in overtime, a thriller against the Broncos. They head to the Twin Cities to take on the Vikings, who are limping badly with no clue of who their quarterback is. As Max Brosmer had an awful game in Seattle, throwing 4 interceptions in the Vikings' first shutout loss since 2007. Do I think the Vikings can bounce back? I think if they rely on their running game, they should be a lot better. The Commanders can be run on, and the Broncos took full advantage of that in their win last week. I think that the Vikings will grind out an ugly but badly needed win. The pick here is Minnesota. Next on the docket, we have the 2-10 Saints taking on the 7-5 Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. The Buccaneers are 8.5-point favorites. Last week, the Saints lost to the Dolphins 21-17, while the Buccaneers defeated the Cardinals 20-17. Now, the Saints are bad. The Saints can't get out of their own way. Their offense is sad. Their defense is even sadder. Now, the Buccaneers are limping along. They have a lot of injuries, and they've made some games a lot tougher than they should be, but I do think that the Buccaneers will be able to manhandle the Saints. That's why I'm confident to make Tampa Bay the Hoodwood lock of the week. Next on the docket, we have the 8-4 Colts taking on the 8-4 Jaguars at Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. The Colts are 1.5-point favorites. Last week, Colts lost to the Texans 20-16, while the Jaguars defeated the Titans 25-3. The Colts wanted to take control of the AFC South, but stumbled over the Texans, which made the division even tighter. The Jaguars are like, first place? We're in first place? Well, you're tied for first place. And they have a big showdown with the Colts on tap. This is basically a prove-it game for both teams. Are the Colts really ready for prime time? Are the Jaguars finally shaking off the stigma of up and down from one week to the next? Playing good one week like they did against the Chiefs, and then turning around playing putrid against other teams. I don't believe in the Jags, even though they're at home. It's going to be a tight game, but I think that Daniel Jones will be able to survive the Jaguars' defensive onslaught and win a tough, narrow game. The pick here is Indianapolis. Next on the docket, we have the 1-11 Titans taking on the 3-9 Browns at Huntington Bank Field in Cleveland. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Browns are 4.5-point favorites. Last week, the Titans lost to the Jaguars 25-3, while the Browns lost to the 49ers 23-8. Does anybody want to watch this game? I mean, I'll be honest. Anybody outside of Nashville, Cleveland will watch this game, and I don't think either team really wants to have anything to do with this. Though I do think that Shedeur Sanders is showing signs of improvement. He should be able to buckle down and get around the Titans. As much as something tells me something's going to go bad here in this game, I'll trust my gut and go with the homestanding team. The pick here is Cleveland. And we will take a timeout, come back with the rest of the early games and the late docket games. Sports from Hoodwood continues after this.
Is today your last day on Earth because you are being deployed to space tomorrow? Have you just turned 18 and you're ready to get out of your parents' house? Has your granddaughter gotten her boyfriend pregnant? Whatever your reason, you need us at GottaGetMarriedNow.com. We specialize in last-minute weddings. Active duty, military veterans and retired discounts are available. Visit us at gottagetmarriednow.com.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight, thorough analysis, and unfiltered opinion on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours, your host, KJ Green.
On we go in the Hoodwood with the NFL Week 14 picks. Continue with the early docket of games. We have the 9-3 Seahawks taking on the 4-8 Falcons at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. 1 o'clock kickoff on Fox. The Seahawks are 7-point favorites. Last week, the Seahawks shut out the Vikings 26-0, while the Falcons lost to the Jets 27-24. Both of these aviary teams are coming off of decent performances, while the Seahawks offense was a bit inconsistent. Their defense was strong enough to shut out the Vikings, while the Falcons looked a little bit lost in Gotham and losing to the Wobegon Jets. I don't trust the Falcons as far as I can throw them nowadays. I gave them my trust going into Gotham for the win, and they let me down. I know, West Coast team, headed east, 1 o'clock game, could spell disaster. But I am confident. I think the Seahawks can pull off the win. The pick here is Seattle. Next on the docket, we have the 4-8 Bengals taking on the 8-4 Bills at Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. 1 o'clock kickoff on CBS. The Bills are 5.5-point favorites. Last week, the Bengals defeated the Ravens 32-14, while the Bills defeated the Steelers 26-7. Both of these teams coming off of unexpected road wins. The Bengals shocking the Ravens on Thanksgiving, while the Bills rolled into Steel City to knock off the Steelers in a fairly easy game. I think the Bengals are going to tease their fans once again by one of these, oh, we're playing so good. And then when the big money's on the line, oh, you thought you just had it, teasing their fans into thinking they actually have a playoff run in them. The Bengals are actually closer to winning their division than the Bills are. The Bengals are just 2 games out, and whoever loses the Ravens-Steelers game in Baltimore will just be a game ahead of the Bengals. And the Bengals have a better divisional record, so they can run these teams down. The Bills are light years behind the Patriots and are just struggling to hold on to a playoff berth. Does this smell like an upset? No, that's a fresh baked bread I got in the oven. No, that is an upset. That's why I have Cincinnati as the Hoodwood upset of the week. Turning to the late docket, we have the 10-2 Broncos taking on the 2-10 Raiders at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. 4:05 kickoff on CBS. The Broncos are 7-point favorites. Last week, the Broncos defeated the Commanders 27-26 in overtime, while the Raiders lost to the Chargers 31-14. The Broncos are on a hot butter roll. They are smoking through the schedule, and people say, oh, they haven't played anybody. You got to win your games. These are NFL games. You got to win them. And the Broncos have been winning. The Raiders, meanwhile, can't get out of their own way. Their offense stinks. Their defense is Swiss cheese. And even though the game's at home, I really don't have any faith in the Raiders being able to defend their home turf. Pick here is Denver. Next on the docket, we have the 9-3 Bears taking on the 8-3-1 Packers at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. 4:25 kickoff on Fox. The Packers are 6.5-point favorites. Last week, the Bears defeated the Eagles 24-15, while the Packers defeated the Lions 31-24. An old NFC Norris division game with the black and blue division, with the Bears taking on their ancient rivals in Green Bay. The Packers are getting more and more confident by the week, especially going into Detroit and knocking off the Lions, while the Bears are like, hey, we're still here. We're still here. Yes, the Bears are still here and have been playing decent ball behind the patient offense of Caleb Williams and the good running of Kyle Monaghan. They are winning games. But do I think they can roll into Green Bay and win? That's a mountain I think is a little too steep for them to climb. I think the Packers, on offense and defense, carries the day. The pick here is Green Bay. Next on the docket, we have the 9-3 Rams taking on the 3-9 Cardinals at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. 4:25 kickoff on Fox. The Rams are 7.5-point favorites. Last week, the Rams lost to the Panthers 31-28, while the Cardinals lost to the Buccaneers 20-17. Mismatch. At least that's what I thought last week when the Rams went to the Panthers. But the Cardinals don't have the semblance of an offense that the Panthers do, and the Rams are going to be looking to take it out on somebody. This game ain't going to be ugly. Hide your kids, hide your wife. The Rams are going to run roughshod. Pick is the LA Rams. The Sunday night game is the 7-5 Texans taking on the 6-6 Chiefs at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. 8:20 kickoff on NBC. The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites. Last week, the Texans defeated the Colts 20-16, while the Chiefs lost to the Cowboys 31-28. This is pretty much the last stand of the Chiefs. If the Chiefs don't hold the fort here, they are sliding toward playoff irrelevance, if not outright elimination. They're not going to get eliminated by a loss to the Texans this week, but their playoff chances will be on life support if they lose. Now, the Texans are trying to stay within shouting distance of both the Colts and the Jaguars in the AFC South and can ill afford a ill-timed loss. That being said, I think the Chiefs reach back in the way back one more time on prime time and make it look good and make it look easy. Pick here is Kansas City. The Monday night game is the 8-4 Eagles at 8-4 Chargers at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. 8:15 kickoff on both ABC and ESPN. Eagles are 3-point favorites. Last week, the Eagles lost to the Bears 24-15, while the Chargers defeated the Raiders 31-14. Good matchup concludes the week in La La Land as the Eagles, fresh off of a puzzling loss to the Bears, head to the City of Angels to take on the Chargers, who have been looking pretty decent and are trying to stay within shouting distance of the Broncos after they defeated the Raiders pretty handily. Tough game to call because you don't know which Eagles team is going to show up. The one with a solid offense where Jalen Hurts is throwing the ball judiciously and Saquon Barkley is battering ram, or the offense that just has no clue and a defense that keeps getting run on and run on and run on. The Chargers, by the way, are a good team. Sneaky good, but they've been living in the shadow of the Broncos so far this season. That's why I think they're going to have a breakout game. I'm sorry, Eagles. I don't trust your team anymore. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. Yes, they have a great running game. Yes, they have a good defense, but they fall asleep at the switch too often. If I didn't already call the Bengals the upset of the week, I would call the Chargers the upset of the week, even though they're at home. Picking the LA Chargers for the Monday night game. And there you have it. Last week I went 9-7. It's a winning week. I'm not going to knock it. Lock and upset both correct. I'm 12-1 on the locks this year, 7-6 on the upsets. Overall, 132, 62, and 1. We will take our final timeout and come back with the Hoodwood Hot 5. Fat Dap, Head Slap, and the final word from the Wood. Sports from the Hoodwood heads down the home stretch after this.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinions on the world of sports. Here now live in living color, black by popular demand. Your host, KJ Green.
Rounding third and headed for home here in the Hoodwood, we'll finish up strong with the Hoodwood Hot 5, Fat Dap Head Slap, and the final word from the Wood. Hoodwood Hot 5 is the penultimate rankings of the 5 best college football teams, at least in my opinion. I use no Coley matrix or any kind of algorithm. I just pick out 5 teams I think are the best. Now, dropping out of the Hoodwood Hot 5 is the Texas A&M Aggies, who were ranked 4th last week. They lost 27-17 to their arch rival Texas. And their next opponent It's anybody's guess because we don't know if they're going to make the college football playoff. Ranked 5th in the Hoodwood Hot 5 is the 11-1 Oregon Ducks, who defeated Washington 26-14. Their next game is also to be determined, more than likely a first-round college football playoff game in Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon. Our number 4 ranked team in the Hoodwood Hot 5 is the 11-1 Texas Tech Red Raiders, who defeated UCF 48-9. Their next game is against Brigham Young in the Big 12 Championship Saturday in Dallas. Our 3rd ranked team is the Georgia Bulldogs. They are 11-1. They were ranked 3rd last week. They defeated in-state rival Georgia Tech 16-9. Their next game is against Alabama in that very same venue that they played Georgia Tech in, the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta, against Alabama in the SEC Championship. Our number 2 and 1 ranked teams are both the same, and they will play each other in the Big Ten Championship. I refer to 2nd ranked Indiana, who is 12-0, who defeated Purdue 56-3. Their next game is against Ohio State, who defeated Michigan. Ohio State is 12-0. They defeated Michigan 26-9. Their next game is against the aforementioned Indiana Hoosiers in the Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis Saturday night. That's my Hot 5. What's yours? Our Fat Dap of the week goes to UK bench player Walker Horn, who has toiled in the anonymous shadow of his more accomplished brethren at the University of Kentucky, but managed to get into the game to nail this three-pointer against Tennessee Tech in a lopsided win. He managed to get into the game late, comes off of a screen, and hits a three to the utter delight of his teammates and the Rupp Arena faithful. Now, you got to say, for a player who has played or more or less practiced for 4 years, doesn't get into games, getting the games really late. Head coach Mark Pope did him a solid by getting him into a late game blowout, and he took advantage, launching up a three and finally making it. I looked at the stats. He had tried 5 other three-pointers and hadn't hit it, but it finally got his first points. Fat dap to Walker Horn of UK. Now, my head slap of the week, and as much as I hate to do it, my alma mater, University of Cincinnati, has not had a very good last couple of weeks after an embarrassing home finale loss to BYU, which I chronicled last week. I also, the loss to BYU with so many just the student section chanting anti-religious epithets, no place for it. And it makes me ashamed to be alumni and fan, season ticket holder. It just was wrong. But the university sports programs just seem to continue to fall off a cliff after losing to Louisville. They took an embarrassing loss, and they won a pretty big game against NJIT. Who? NJIT. Yeah. They were supposed to continue their winning ways with another cookie game against Eastern Michigan. Problem was, nobody bothered telling Eastern Michigan that they were supposed to roll over and play dead. They knocked off Bearcats 64-56. And basically, the team was booed off the court. Now, I know a number of players, former players from UC, and a lot of them that I have spoken with have openly shaken their heads over what the direction of a once proud program has. This team has not made the NCAA tournament since 2019. 2019, for crying out loud. The basketball team is in a lot of trouble. And with a rivalry game against Xavier coming up on Friday, the shucking and jiving's got to stop. Else they're going to fall into another pit of irrelevancy. And as an alumni and still a big booster of the team, that is unacceptable. Now, without much further ado, let's go to the final word. It's starting to get stupid. Now, make no mistake, I have no problem with NIL deals in college athletics. I think that college athletes, especially in college football and basketball, have been exploited for way too long. The NCAA tournament makes hundreds of millions of dollars for its member institutions in TV and advertising revenue. And until very recently, the schools pocketed the money and only the coaches were getting only the slightest of this revenue. The arguments of, well, the players are getting a free education, room and board, that was a standard turn back to those who would have argued that the players should see some of the spoils. The issue now is that the schools are now looking to keep the revenue streams as wide and fast-flowing as possible. Teams are cutting deals with advertisers, winning conferences in the hopes of keeping money flowing in the faster that they know how to pay it out. Here, now we have the issue. There are private equity firms that are lurking about. One such firm, UC Investments, the University of Cincinnati, the University of California, their system portfolio manager is trying to set up a $2.4 billion investment to create a standalone company called Big Ten Enterprises. Now, just back in October, a previously scheduled meeting of the University of Michigan's Board of Regents, member Jordan Acker and Mark Bernstein slammed the notion of bringing private equity into the league, calling it a, quote, short-sighted, reckless operation. Now, Acker told Nicole Auerbach of NBC Sports on the SiriusXM College Sports Show that if the Big Ten agrees to this without a unanimous approval from all 18 members of the Big Ten, that the school will consider going independent. Michigan, one of the long standard bearers of Big Ten sports, going independent when their current media rights deal expires in 2013. I beg your pardon, when their current media rights deal expires in 2036. Keep in mind that Michigan was a charter member of the Big Ten Conference when it was founded in 1896, and aside from a 10-year period when they were an independent from 1907 to 1917, have been a stalwart member of this conference. Now, you're looking at an iconic school breaking ranks from the only conference affiliation that they've ever known. Now, according to some basic terms of this deal, as part of the proposed deal, UC Investments would earn 10% of the Big Ten's media and sponsorship rights for the next 15 years. After that, it could sell its stake. The remaining 90% will be divided among the schools, with payouts varying based on a university's earning potential. Now, when news of this pending deal broke last month, both Michigan and USC were two institutions that objected. The other 16 teams in the conference have all seemingly agreed on the deal, not only because athletics costs are rising, especially since a court settlement allows NCAA schools to pay players directly, but because that immediate influx of cash would theoretically help all programs become more competitive in the short term in the NIL era. But Michigan wants its own financial autonomy, and that would be out of alignment with what this private equity firm would stand for. Also balking at the deal would be USC, who've only been with the Big Ten since last year. They would only not receive the same amount of payout as older Big Ten members, but they would receive a smaller share for a shorter time. Now, I think this is the first domino in the line of those that will fall for college football and collegiate sports as a whole. You'll soon see the richer, more affluent programs in the Big Ten and SEC start to cannibalize their own less wealthy brethren in their own conferences and push them out in these private equity deals. And don't be surprised in the next few years, the rise of super conferences where 32 or 36 of the more wealthy and affluent teams and schools break off and play their own big money league football. Smaller and less affluent schools and conferences will be left with the table scraps, and that, if at all, you will likely see the Paul Feinbaums of the sporting war advocate for these conferences to get all the coverage all the time, shutting out, in their mind, these lesser schools. Now, do I want this to happen? Not at all. I like seeing the smaller schools get their shot at the prime time, the James Madisons, the Tulanes, the North Texases et al. But with the rise of NIL money and the specter of these private equity firms bankrolling these richest schools may soon be a harsh reality. And that is the final word from the wood. Now, with the music coming up in the background, you know that means that your time here in the Hoodwood is just about done. And I thank you so much for your visit. Now, the show's email is kjgreen@sportsfromthehoodwood.com. Please send me emails regarding show topics, both past and future, questions, comments on the show, and both praise and criticism. I welcome your correspondence, and we'll try to get back with you in a timely manner. Now, the show's website is sportsfromthehoodwood.com, which has a back catalog of the show dating back to 15 years, both audio and video form. So you can check that out if there are any shows that you have missed. You can join the debate and conversation on the Sports from the Hoodwood page on Facebook, which also has a video podcast simulcast, as well as other topics, funny stuff that I find on the web, plenty of great sports debate, and lots more. We have a lot of great contributors. You can be one too. I post often and respond to member posts frequently. Now, the video versions are also on YouTube. Hit that subscribe and smash that like button for more great content. You can also find some of my quick takes, Hoodwood hot takes, on Hoodwood Shorts on the same page. And the link to the podcast is also on the show's Blue Sky feed at hoodwoodsports.bluesky.social. Has a host of interesting stuff to find there. The correspondence with the show is encouraged, and we do respond back. So like and follow there as well. Now, the audio version is on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Samsung Podcast, Apple Podcast, and a host of other fine podcast platforms and providers. If the Hoodwood is not on your favorite, please do ask me. Drop me a line, and I'll see what I can do to get it there. Expanded our podcast availability thanks to your correspondence. As always, special thanks to Rage Pictures for providing both production assistance to the show and website. So that's it from the Hoodwood, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Until next time, fellow sports fans, I'm Merely Bev's son, KJ Green.
Sports from the Hoodwood
Is a Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises presentation.
of a 551 audio and films production.